Bulgaria, officially the Republic of Bulgaria, is a country in southeastern Europe. It is bordered by Romania to the north, Serbia and Macedonia to the west, Greece and Turkey to the south, and the Black Sea to the east. With a territory of 110,994 square kilometers, Bulgaria is Europe's 16th largest country. Organized prehistoric cultures began developing on Bulgarian lands during the Neolithic period. Its ancient history saw the presence of the Thracians, and later the Persians, Greeks and Romans. The emergence of a unified Bulgarian state dates back to the establishment of the First Bulgarian Empire in 681 AD, which dominated most of the Balkans and functioned as a cultural hub for Slavs during the Middle Ages. With the downfall of the Second Bulgarian Empire in 1396, its territories came under Ottoman rule for nearly 5 centuries. The Russo-Turkish War led to the formation of the Third Bulgarian state. The following years saw several conflicts with its neighbors, which prompted Bulgaria to align with Germany in both world wars. In 1946 it became a single-party socialist state as part of the Soviet-led Eastern Bloc. In December 1989 the ruling Communist Party allowed multi-party elections, which subsequently led to Bulgaria's transition into a democracy and a market-based economy. Bulgaria's population of 7.4 million people is predominantly urbanized and mainly concentrated in the administrative centers of its 28 provinces. Most commercial and cultural activities are centered on the capital and largest city, Sofia. The strongest sectors of the economy are heavy industry, power engineering, and agriculture, all of which rely on local natural resources. The country's current political structure dates to the adoption of a democratic constitution in 1991. Bulgaria is a unitary parliamentary republic with a high degree of political, administrative, and economic centralization. It is a member of the European Union, NATO, and the Council of Europe, a founding state of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and has taken a seat at the UN Security Council 3 times. History. Prehistory and antiquity. Human activity in the lands of modern Bulgaria can be traced back to the Paleolithic. Animal bones incised with man-made markings from Kozarnica cave are assumed to be the earliest examples of symbolic behavior in humans. Organized prehistoric societies in Bulgarian lands include the Neolithic Hamangia culture, Vinca culture and the E-Neolithic Varna culture. The latter is credited with inventing gold working and exploitation. Some of these first gold smelters produced the coins, weapons and jewelry of the Varna necropolis treasure, the oldest in the world with an approximate age of over 6,000 years. This site also offers insights for understanding the social hierarchy of the earliest European societies. Thracians, one of the 3 primary ancestral groups of modern Bulgarians, began appearing in the region during the Iron Age. In the late 6th century BC, Darius the Great incorporated all of what is nowadays Bulgaria into his vast Achaemenid Persian Empire. Following the Ionian Revolt, Persian rule over the Balkans loosened. In 492 BC, his general Mardonius resubjugated all of Thrace and conquered Macedon, firmly restoring the Persian hold over the region. Following the Persian defeat in Greece, most of the numerous Thracian tribes were united in the Odrysian kingdom in the 470s BC by King Teres. Prior to the overthrow of the Persian Empire, the Thracians were eventually subjugated by Alexander the Great and later by the Romans in 46 AD. After the division of the Roman Empire in 5th century, the area fell under Byzantine control. By this time, Christianity had already spread in the area. A small Gothic community in Nicopolis Adistrum produced the first Germanic language book in the 4th century, the Wulfila Bible. The first Christian monastery in Europe was established around the same time by Saint Athanasius in central Bulgaria. From the 6th century the easternmost South Slavs gradually settled in the region, assimilating the Hellenized or Romanized Thracians. First Bulgarian Empire and 680 Bulgar tribes, under the leadership of Asparuk, moved south across the Danube and settled in the area between the lower Danube and the Balkan, establishing their capital at Pliska. A peace treaty with Byzantium in 681 marked the beginning of the First Bulgarian Empire. The Bulgars gradually mixed up with the local population, adopting a common language on the basis of the local Slavic dialect. Succeeding rulers strengthened the Bulgarian state throughout the 8th and 9th centuries. Krum doubled the country's territory, killed Byzantine Emperor Nicephorus I in the Battle of Pliska, and introduced the first written code of law. Paganism was abolished in favor of Eastern Orthodox Christianity under Boris I in 864. This conversion was followed by a Byzantine recognition of the Bulgarian Church and the adoption of the Cyrillic alphabet developed at Preslav, which strengthened central authority and helped fuse the Slavs and Bulgars into a unified people. Wars with Magyars and Pechenegs and the spread of the Bogomil heresy weakened Bulgaria after Simeon's death. Consecutive Rus and Byzantine invasions resulted in the seizure of the capital Preslav by the Byzantine army in 971. Under Samuil, Bulgaria briefly recovered from these attacks. But this rise ended when Byzantine Emperor Basil II defeated the Bulgarian army at Cluj in 1014. Samuil died shortly after the battle, and by 1018 the Byzantines had ended the First Bulgarian Empire. Second Bulgarian Empire. After his conquest of Bulgaria, Basil II prevented revolts and discontent by retaining the rule of the local nobility and by relieving the newly conquered lands of the obligation to pay taxes in gold, allowing them to be paid in kind instead. He also allowed the Bulgarian Patriarchate to retain its autocephalous status and all its dioceses, but reduced it to an archbishopric. After his death, Byzantine domestic policies changed and a series of unsuccessful rebellions broke out, the largest being led by Peter Delian. In 1185, Asen dynasty nobles Ivan Asen I and Peter IV organized a major uprising which resulted in the re-establishment of the Bulgarian state. Ivan Asen and Peter laid the foundations of the Second Bulgarian Empire with Tarnovo as a capital. Kaloyan, the third of the Asen monarchs, extended his dominion to Belgrade and Ohrid. He acknowledged the spiritual supremacy of the Pope and received a royal crown from a papal legate. The empire reached its zenith under Ivan Asen II, when commerce and culture flourished. The strong economic and religious influence of Tarnovo made it a third Rome, unlike the already declining Constantinople. The country's military and economic might declined after the Asen dynasty ended in 1257, facing internal conflicts, constant Byzantine and Hungarian attacks and Mongol domination. By the end of the 14th century, factional divisions between the feudal landlords and the spread of Bogomilism had caused the Second Bulgarian Empire to split into three tsardoms: Vidin, Tarnovo and Kavuna, and several semi-independent principalities that fought each other, along with Byzantines, Hungarians, Serbs, Venetians and Genoese. By the late 14th century, the Ottoman Turks had started their conquest of Bulgaria and had taken most towns and fortresses south of the Balkan Mountains. Ottoman-ruled Tarnovo was captured by the Ottomans after a 3-month siege in 1393. After the Battle of Nicopolis in 1396 brought about the fall of the Vidin Tsardom, the Ottomans conquered all Bulgarian lands south of the Danube. The nobility was eliminated and the peasantry was enser-fed to Ottoman masters, with much of the educated clergy fleeing to other countries. Under the Ottoman system, Christians were considered an inferior class of people. Thus, Bulgarians, like other Christians, were subjected to heavy taxes, and a small portion of the Bulgarian populace experienced partial or complete Islamization, and their culture was suppressed. Ottoman authorities established the Rum millet, a religious administrative community which governed all Orthodox Christians regardless of their ethnicity. Most of the local population gradually lost its distinct national consciousness, identifying as Christians. However, the clergy remaining in some isolated monasteries kept it alive, and that helped it to survive as in some rural, remote areas, as well as in the militant Catholic community in the northwestern part of the country. Several Bulgarian revolts erupted throughout the nearly 5 centuries of Ottoman rule, most notably the Habsburg-backed Tarnovo uprisings in 1598 and in 1686, the Cheprovci uprising in 1688 and Karposh's rebellion in 1689. In the 18th century, the Enlightenment in Western Europe provided influence for the initiation of a movement known as the National Awakening of Bulgaria. It restored national consciousness and became a key factor in the liberation struggle, resulting in the 1876 April Uprising. Up to 30,000 Bulgarians were killed as Ottoman authorities put down the rebellion. The massacres prompted the Great Powers to take action. They convened a Constantinople conference in 1876, but their decisions were rejected by the Ottomans. This allowed the Russian Empire to seek a solution by force without risking military confrontation with other great powers, as had happened in the Crimean War. In 1877, Russia declared war on the Ottoman Empire and defeated its forces with the help of Bulgarian volunteers. Third Bulgarian state. The Treaty of San Stefano was signed on 3 March 1878 by Russia and the Ottoman Empire, and included a provision to set up an autonomous Bulgarian principality roughly on the territories of the Second Bulgarian Empire. The other great powers immediately rejected the treaty out of fear that such a large country in the Balkans might threaten their interests. It was superseded by the subsequent Treaty of Berlin, signed on 13 July, provided for a much smaller state comprising Moesia and the region of Sofia, leaving large populations of Bulgarians outside the new country. This played a significant role in forming Bulgaria's militaristic approach to foreign affairs during the first half of the 20th century. The Bulgarian Principality won a war against Serbia and incorporated the semi-autonomous Ottoman territory of Eastern Rumelia in 1885, proclaiming itself an independent state on 5 October 1908. In the years following independence, Bulgaria increasingly militarized and was often referred to as the Balkan Prussia. Between 1912 and 1918, Bulgaria became involved in 3 consecutive conflicts, 2 Balkan Wars and World War I. After a disastrous defeat in the Second Balkan War, Bulgaria again found itself fighting on the losing side as a result of its alliance with the Central Powers in World War I. Despite fielding more than a quarter of its population in a 1,200,000 strong army and achieving several decisive victories at Duran and Dobrich, the country capitulated in 1918. The war resulted in significant territorial losses, and a total of 87,500 soldiers killed. More than 253,000 refugees immigrated to Bulgaria from 1912 to 1929 due to the effects of these wars, placing additional strain on the already ruined national economy. The political unrest resulting from these losses led to the establishment of a royal authoritarian dictatorship by Tsar Boris III. Bulgaria entered World War II in 1941 as a member of the Axis but declined to participate in Operation Barbarossa and saved its Jewish population from deportation to concentration camps. The sudden death of Boris III in the summer of 1943 pushed the country into political turmoil as the war turned against Germany and the communist guerrilla movement gained momentum. The government of Bogdan Filov subsequently failed to achieve peace with the Allies. Bulgaria did not comply with Soviet demands to expel German forces from its territory. resulting in a declaration of war and an invasion by the USSR in September 1944. The communist-dominated Fatherland Front took power, ended participation in the Axis and joined the Allied side until the war ended. The left-wing uprising of 9 September 1944 led to the abolition of monarchic rule, but it was not until 1946 that a single-party People's Republic was established. It became a part of the Soviet sphere of influence under the leadership of Georgy Dimitrov, who laid the foundations for a rapidly industrializing Stalinist state which was also highly repressive, with thousands of dissidents executed. By the mid-1950s, standards of living rose significantly, while political repressions were lessened. By the 1980s, both national and per capita GDP quadrupled, but the economy remained prone to debt spikes, the most severe taking place in 1960, 1977 and 1980. The Soviet-style planned economy saw some market-oriented policies emerging on an experimental level under Todor Zhivkov. His daughter Lyudmila bolstered national pride by promoting Bulgarian heritage, culture and arts worldwide, in an attempt to erase the identity of the ethnic Turk minority. An assimilation campaign was launched in 1984 which included closing mosques and forcing ethnic Turks to adopt Slavic names. These policies resulted in the emigration of some 300,000 ethnic Turks to Turkey. Under the influence of the collapsing of the Eastern Bloc, on 10 November 1989 the Communist Party gave up its political monopoly, Zhivkov resigned, and Bulgaria embarked on a transition to a parliamentary democracy. The first free elections in June 1990 were won by the Bulgarian Socialist Party. A new constitution that provided for a relatively weak elected president and for a prime minister accountable to the legislature was adopted in July 1991. The new system initially failed to improve living standards or create economic growth. The average quality of life and economic performance remained lower than under communism well into the early 2000s. A 1997 reform package restored economic growth, but living standards continued to suffer. After 2001, economic, political and geopolitical conditions improved greatly, and Bulgaria achieved high human development status. It became a member of NATO in 2004 and participated in the war in Afghanistan. After several years of reforms, it joined the European Union in 2007 despite continued concerns about government corruption.